right, so this is great. You're running.
Yes.
Kristin Palmer is my guest today. Thank you for stopping in and having coffee
Thank you
with
for the
me.
coffee.
I'm glad you enjoy it.
It's delicious.
Yes.
Iced latte.
Yeah, I like
Extra
it.
shot.
You might be the first one that's gotten that on the show. I
Only
think.
because I've already had my hot coffee this
Oh,
morning.
so
I've
you're
already
looking
had a
for-
pot. So now I kind of graduate to the iced coffee.
Yeah. And I'm glad you enjoy it.
Yeah,
It's
it's
good. So you were running for District C.
Yes.
So let's talk about District C for people who don't know District C.
Okay.
It's Algiers.
It's the entirety of the West Bank in Orleans Parish, and
Okay.
then it pops over the river to the French Quarter, Marigny, Tremé, St. Roch,
Okay. And
Bywater, of course.
And then to
all the way to Poland. So it kind of, and it goes a little bit beyond, because there's that little tiny area right to the, right after Poland Avenue. So it goes to the Industrial Canal.
Okay. Oh, to the Industrial Canal. Oh, yeah.
And then it goes all the way up to like Claiborne. So, and it kind of jags a little bit. But
Okay, so where do you live in the
I live in
district?
Algiers Point.
You're in Algiers Point.
Right.
Okay, all right, cool. And then what's like, okay, so where'd you go to high school and stuff? I have to ask those kind of questions. You're from here, or what's your bio?
I went to Ursuline.
Ursuline, okay.
I went to Ursuline. I'm one of 8 kids. There are 8 of us in 8 years. In fact, I have a sister that lives in Bywater.
Mm-hmm.
I also have another sister who's a cop in the 5th District, which is in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
Y'all have the 5th District.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of deep ties to this community.
Your name is on the front of this building.
Yes.
You were, because you were.
I was a council member from 2010 to 2014.
Right.
This was one of the very important projects. I was it's kind of a mixed bag. When I was with it, we were going to put the project out as a white box and really the idea was to really let the community determine what was going to come in here.
Uh-huh.
So when I was in office and we broke ground to do the renovations, I also created a civic committee
Uh-huh.
to kind of help steer the project. So, and it had representatives from St. Roch, from Marigny, from Bywater, and from Tremé to really kind of help guide the conversation of what the market would look like.
I don't think it's. We've been very successful here with the
Good,
coffee
I'm glad,
shop.
I'm glad.
So it's been.
We need more coffee shops.
Yeah. Are you saying that sarcastically?
No, I'm really not. I love coffee shops. I have 3 daughters. They love hanging out in coffee shops.
And to
It's
me,
great.
I really think the market's and the reason why I really wanted to do the coffee shop here at the market is I really think the market's like a coffee shop on steroids.
It kind of is.
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Because it's like, hey, let's meet up there. I've had my coffee yet. Well, let me grab some lunch, or you can grab coffee,
Right,
I'll grab
right.
lunch or whatever. And you and I could stand up here and have a conversation, and it
True.
would not be weird, you know.
Right.
So it's not like a restaurant, but it's more
No,
like
it
that,
is.
you
It
know.
is.
So the District C has got
It's
the quarter,
very
the Marigny
diverse.
is very
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
diverse. Because
So the interesting thing too about District C is it's the only district that is reflective of the entire city demographically.
Okay.
So racially, the breakdown is very similar. We also have a lot
I
of
did
people,
not know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know this. We have a good strong Vietnamese community on the West Bank.
okay.
We're urban, but we're also suburban.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. You have the French Quarter and like the downtown neighborhoods, but then you also have like English Turn,
English
a
Turn, which
a
is
gated community.
Uh-huh.
We have the largest LGBT community is also within District C. So
And
it's
within District C, of course, is like the French Quarter.
right, and
So
you have the French Quarter.
that's a huge. And I think that's like it's like crazy, to think about that's the biggest
Right, right.
like it's hard because like there's maybe not a lot of residents in the French Quarter,
Right. And I've always said though with the French Quarter though and the residents, it's kind of like they're the canary in the coal mine. They feel all the pressures that are going to start slowly kind of seeping out to other communities, and I think we saw that with the Airbnb issue.
Yeah.
We see it with a lot of different issues. We see it with crime. And so it's been very fascinating to
And they're probably the first ones, I guess, for lack of a better term, like to gentrify in the 80s or 70s or whatever, that cleans up.
Well,
and
they also got pushed out too. Remember, so like the French Quarter was on a deep decline in the early 20th century, and it kept going downhill. And then around the 70s, 80s, you had a gay population that came in and really started renovating the houses and living there. And it became a lot more residential because you got to remember the French Quarter was the city and it was residential.
Yeah. You met Hayes. Hayes grew up in the quarter.
Yeah. and then as you know, increased commercialization.
It's Disney World.
started pushing folks out, right? So it pushed the residents out of the French Quarter, and a lot of them wound up in Marigny.
Yeah.
Right. And so then you saw how Marigny started, coming back and Bellwater. So it's kind of interesting the way.
So that leads
Changes.
that leads like the Disneyification of the quarter. I think that leads us into like the Airbnb topic.
Right.
And this is going to be one of the things that I guess is going to be a big deal moving forward. And I'll say short-term rentals or whatever.
Right.
What's your stance on that, and how do you vote on that when you get into city council?
Well, it's a fascinating issue because we started seeing it when I was on the council, but it's just a little bit. But we started getting complaints in my office. I'll never forget, it was like right towards the end of my term, and there's this wonderful lady, a longtime resident in Tremay, called me up, just at her wit's end, because somebody had bought the house on either side of her, and they were marketing it as one was, and they're both like Airbnbs, and one was marketed towards bachelor parties, and the other one was towards bachelorette parties.
Oh, geez.
And she was just totally losing her whole quality of life.
Yeah.
And Tremay was very much a tight-knit community, and it's changed a great deal. So I think we have to be very careful about this whole, that right now what's happened, and we all saw the legislation that went through, I think we're going to have to readdress this issue because I think there's some unintended consequences of what's happening in our communities. And what I mean by that is what we're seeing is like in the French Quarter where you're not allowed to have the Airbnbs, right? More people are now buying properties very close to the French Quarter, like Marigny, Tremay, Bywater, and I think there's being increased pressure within those communities.
In other words, since you can't do Airbnb in the quarter, we can do Airbnb in Tremay. And then if you do it there, then it's like, okay, well then mid-city now is
Correct.
So it seems like it's something that and I don't want to compare it to like the drug problem, but it's like something that where people are making so much money at it, it's just hard to regulate.
Right. And the problem is, there's a precedent with this, and people are forgetting. I know our economies are changing so fast with technology, but if we slow it down a little bit, let's look at bed and breakfasts, for example, and the zoning, and the existing zoning for bed and breakfasts, and what is existing on the CZO. So when people started, and when planners and communities started really looking at zoning issues and classifications, bed and breakfast, one of the laws within the zoning is that you can only have one bed and breakfast per facing block.
Yeah.
And they did that on purpose so that it would always kind of protect the residential neighborhood and feel of a community.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of approach it the same way, right? We have to say, we already had precedent set. Everybody knew that too many bed and breakfasts could force out residents. So we just need to kind of apply that same kind of thought to Airbnbs. I don't think anybody has a problem with an Airbnb where you have a resident, which is a homeowner on one side, the other side might be 1 or 2 rooms. I don't think a lot of people have issues with that if it's tied to your homestead exemption. I think we all know post-Katrina that our property taxes have gone up significantly. A lot of our day-to-day costs.
Yeah.
Some folks need to make a little bit of money to cover that cost. I don't think that's as big of a deal as whole house. And not really paying attention to zoning and where it is. Because the other thing about the CZO and with all this neighbor participation is that y'all determined, the communities determined where they wanted commercial.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, a short-term rental is commercial.
Yeah. It's a commercial thing. Yeah, for sure. If you've got people coming through, you need trash pickup more often. You need, absolutely.
So I think we need to treat it as a commercial entity, right? And limit it within neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And I think neighborhoods should have the ability to self-determine. I think that's kind of what a democracy is based on anyway.
Yeah.
And each neighborhood is different. And that's one thing I really wanted to talk about too within District C, which is really intriguing, is that our communities and our neighborhoods are very different and very diverse. And so I know a lot of folks in C, especially like on the East Bank, were like, we don't understand because it's, the West Bank is so big and we feel so different. But then, I live in Old Algiers, which is still feel like urban. It can still feel like this. And we're the second oldest neighborhood in the city after the French Quarter. So when we talk about representation for C, we need to really ask who's ever running and who's in office is like, do they really understand the different neighborhoods and the character of each of these neighborhoods.
And I think it's very interesting.
It really is.
It's super interesting.
It makes it very
That's why I
difficult.
started off this with,
Yeah,
let's
exactly.
talk about District C.
Right.
You know?
And it makes it much more challenging to serve that district.
Yeah.
But you also have to respect the fact that each of these neighborhoods are different, and there's going to have to be an element of self-determination, and you're going to have to
What works in Algiers doesn't necessarily work for Bywater.
Exactly.
So one of the things I guess that'll tie it all together is crime. you know? And I guess the crime is a larger city issue. Of course, you'll be voting on things of that nature as well. But the French Quarter with our tourists is a big deal. But also, we moved to Bywater so we could walk around, but my wife doesn't feel safe to walk to Markey Park.
Right.
And so if that's the how do we? What can you do as City Council District C, or what's your take on how to resolve that problem?
Well, it's going to be a multi-tiered issue, and the police force has been so decimated that it's going to take a few years. So we're going to have to.
Yeah, I had Jeff Asher on. He said 20.
I don't know if it's going to be 20. I think so. I think it's going to take a few years, so we're going to have to really have a level approach to this. I'm a huge proponent of the pay increase, and in the new budget that the mayor put out, there's going to be around $9 to $10 million. I think that's a start. I don't think it should start in January. I think it should start now. Because, and we need to make sure that within the budget there is money for testing, and it's testing every 2 years. Because what's happening right now is we're losing officers. So we've already lost 60 officers this year.
Yeah, wow.
So, and 68% of those officers have only been on the force between 0 and 15 years.
And to give everyone a thing, we need 1,600. We've got about 1,100, and we lost 60.
Right, but we keep
roughly.
losing.
We
so
keep
I think
losing.
we have to also have the conversation. So everyone's talking about recruitment, but we also have to have the conversation of how do we
stop people leaving.
Right.
And
then how do we also retain them? And then how can we attract the ones that we lost back?
Yeah.
So I think with the pay increase.
Because you know what I've noticed with my Uber drivers are all 5th District police that left the force, and they're driving Ubers.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. That's my new thing. Yeah, I've noticed that. I went back and forth to the quarter one day, had a cop bring me there, and former cop bring me there, and a former cop bring me back.
That's
Well, yeah,
And they left the force, or they're doing that because our
they
secondary
left
employment
they
sucks?
left the floor. They got there's too much paperwork in the NOPD these days with the dissent decree, and now I'm running Ubers.
Yeah.
That's what they're
My
doing.
sister says that, who's a cop. She's like, I spend 3 hours doing paperwork a
Yeah,
day.
they're like, I can't handle this. I'm gonna go run Ubers,
yeah.
and they're running Ubers. Yeah. I'm like, well, as if anybody ever have an
Right.
Uber
So
driver.
we can't really fix the consent decree until everything is done. But in the same vein, we cannot have a constitutional police force if our police force is understaffed and underpaid.
Yeah.
We can't. It's just not going to work. And so that's why I think the pay thing should happen immediately. We should not wait until the first of the year. And also the testing is very important. And that's because right now officers are only given they're civil service, right?
Yeah.
So you can't advance unless you have a test. So right now there's a test every 5 years, and if you don't do well, you have to wait another 5 years. So that's another reason why we're losing a lot of the younger cops, because you don't see a pathway to advancement.
Yeah.
And when you get to be in your 30s, you
Yeah,
have a mortgage or a kid.
Right. You want to say, how do I can advance?
Right. So we need to address those issues, and it appears that there will be in the 2018 budget. I really hope that this council that's still in office will push it to happen immediately.
Yeah.
So I think
that's like one tier.
That's one tier. I think the other one is we are going to have to, again, continue to use the state police. I think we need to ask the state police, though, to also patrol the I-10, the raised I-10, because that takes a significant amount of our NOPD resources.
Okay.
And I think we need to make sure that when we bring in additional resources that we have it clearly defined what they do to augment, to allow our police officers to actually police, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that could save a lot of manpower.
And put NOPD into the neighborhoods.
Correct. I think that would be a big help. I also think that in some neighborhoods, we had that conversation about how District C is so different, but in some neighborhoods, technology could work really well. For instance, in Algiers, Algiers, it's also very suburban, and so that there are you can pretty much get the entry points covered.
Yeah. Because you're
Like
coming
you've
in
got
and
General
out.
de Gaulle, you're coming
Right.
in and out. We need license plate readers all up and down General de Gaulle, and even focus on where we know where there's crime in some of the larger apartment complexes, and those need to be set up. And I think that would be a really good, cost-effective way of augmenting our police. So we have to look at
Those technology.
Yeah, and when I was in office, I would meet regularly, monthly, with depending on which district, with the district and with the community, and figure out ways. Like in Algiers, we would meet with like the apartment managers, and we had big complexes, to see and I would match them with the officers to see what things that they could do to make their areas better to police and the police more responsive. And when you create partnerships like that, we're going to have to do more of that because of the limited resources. And that was something that we were very effective in.
Because I don't want to live here if I can't walk around.
What's the point?
That's
right. That's why you live here.
I live here because I want to be able to walk and freely walk around.
Right.
If I can't walk around, I want to live somewhere with a driveway. You know, I mean, you're pretty much
and
that.
we know how many driveways there are in these neighborhoods.
In Bywater, yes. Only when you're looking for a spot. Only when you're looking for a parking spot do you notice all the driveways.
Right.
So the next big thing that people keep talking about is like affordability, and that seems to be like this real like buzzword.
Yeah, but
nobody defines affordability. But then they say, oh, we want more police. We want our potholes fixed, and we need affordability, and we want our taxes lowered. Or now and so like especially with Bywater with the new taxes coming out.
Oh, that's crazy high.
Yeah, and then it got
Right.
At least mine. I mean, I looked at mine and I'm like, can I sell my house for this price? Like, I would think so. I would hope so. So how do I? You know what I mean? I don't want to pay more taxes, but I want more services. How do we balance affordability with services? You know what I mean?
That's a really good question. And I think when I look at the budget, when I left office to today in terms of the revenue, I mean, there's $70 or $80 million more revenue from when I was in office annually.
Wow.
And that's how the budget's increased. So when people say we don't have enough money to do X, Y, and Z, I really feel like it's a value system, and there are choices that need to be made on what we can do and what we can't do. I think public safety is the first and primary issue. Everything should be thrown at this right now, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
Secondarily, obviously, the parks, the infrastructure for children, nor should not be cut, right? We need to make sure we're paying attention to that. But when we talk about affordability and housing, I think, people say that there's a lack of affordable housing. I think all of us, if we drive around this city.
I'm going to agree with it. I know where you're going with this, and I'm going to agree with it. There's a lot
of
everybody
vacant
wants to
housing.
Everybody wants to, the city is not just the 13 blocks into French Quarter. There's a lot of space between Rampart and the lake.
So everybody is saying we don't have enough affordable housing, but I'm like, we've got 30,000 properties that are vacant and blighted. So to me, it's a marketplace issue, and it's an issue of getting these properties back into the pipeline.
And probably making those neighborhoods not safe for people to live in is also another.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We should be. Yeah. Absolutely. So I now, I have my own business, and I renovate vacant and blighted houses. And so I target ones that are incredibly complicated and have been vacant and blighted for 20, 30 years. And I'm focusing on this one particular community. And I know how hard it is to get them. I think we really need to streamline the process. We need to be more creative in what we're doing in terms of getting these properties into the hands of people that can build equity and wealth and in an affordable way. It makes it very difficult if you have a property that have tens of thousands of back taxes on it. So even if the property is only worth what you and I may say $35,000 or whatever, everything brings it up to $100,000, and you need another six figures to renovate it. It doesn't make a lot of economic sense.
So how to cut through the red tape to get those properties back into service? No, that sounds great. I mean, I think that's an awesome. That's the best idea I've heard so far for this. That's great.
And we also, and I think it's going to be very difficult too. And I also don't want to.
Like say it's so easy.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult process, and I also think we also have to pay attention to what's happening up at the state and the federal level when we talk about incentives for affordable housing. And I think we're in an administration in D.C. that's not going to be as receptive, and we have to watch where that money's coming from. So I think we're really going to have to find creative ways of doing this.
Yeah. Interesting. One of the big things Marigny Bywater right now is, and the neighborhood groups get on it, is like the heights and building permits. And I've seen like on Realtor like lately like these gigantic apartment complexes like within Bywater that are like selling. Like they're new, like with like Burgundy and like Pauline and stuff. Those corners. I don't know if that's the right corner, so don't quote me on that. But inside like these big apartment complexes that are tall, you know, is that and then like now you got Crescent Park. There's good. The push is up, and
Okay.
there's a lot of seems to be that way.
It seems to be that way, but is that really helping the affordable housing issue? What
I don't-
market are we looking at there?
Right. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
And I'm not. And again, I'm not. I'm not comfortable with going against what a CZO states and what a community wanted for height for that. I'm just not comfortable yet. I haven't seen anything I haven't seen enough incentives to do it that would be to the benefit of the community, to the benefit of affordable housing. Yes, I
Because
believe.
with the government Nichols Wharf and the
Right.
connection of Crescent Park coming in the next couple of years,
Right.
I see this seems to be the trend,
Right.
And whether or not a cruise ship terminal is going to anchor the other side or not, but despite whatever that's going on with that, I think that something's going to anchor it. There's a big
Yeah.
building there.
Well,
Something's
yeah,
going
you've
to go
got the
in there.
NSA, and
Uh-huh.
I think you have that potentially under development, and I think the developer who has
Something
that
needs
will
to.
bring.
Something should go there. It's a big empty
Oh,
building.
absolutely,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, and you have parking in the middle. I don't know if you
Yeah.
realize
Yeah,
that's
it's
a
a big
million.
old-
That's 1,000,000 square feet under roof. Those three buildings,
It's insane.
and the building in the center was built for parking, and all three of them are poured concrete.
So I guess
structures.
the question is, where do you see that development going? It needs to something's
Something
going to happen. Something is going to
absolutely,
happen.
But I think it has to happen within the overall plan of the community and the neighborhood and how that looks. And I think with the NSA, which I think is what you're talking about, that's a known entity, right? Those are known buildings. They're ready to go.
Yeah.
The developer, I think, is working on that. So that'll be an interesting project. I think it's gonna be fun.
Because that'll be stuff that you're probably
Yeah,
voting
yeah.
on.
I think it's gonna be really exciting.
Because on the flip side of that, all the restaurants in Bywater are shutting down.
Which is crazy to me.
It's just, I just, and I say all the restaurants in Bywater.
They don't.
I don't mean,
Not all of them.
I'm Jack Dempsey's. I don't want an email from you.
Yeah, exactly.
But we have quite, I mean,
Remember that
the
fried food
established,
platter?
dude, huh?
I know.
Jeez, I know. It's real bad.
Can feed my
It's
entire
delicious,
family.
yes, I know. But, it seems like the establishment in Bywater, the Bacchanals,
Right.
the Jack
They're doing
Dempseys
great.
are doing great. But the newer, like hipper kind of restaurants have all shut down. And I've made it clear on this show, I thought Maurepas Foods was the best restaurant in the city.
I love their Brussels sprouts.
Oh man, it's
They
all
were
it's
awesome.
awesome.
They were awesome.
So how do is there not enough people in Bywater? Is the density not there? Is it and how do we?
I read that really
what's your
interesting
thoughts on
article
that?
from that when they interviewed Cafe Henri about that they're really having to change their business.
I didn't buy
plan.
that article, by the way. I want to
didn't?
say I didn't agree
I don't know.
with
I
that
got to
article.
go from that. Well, I got to go from what they're saying is that they have to kind of adapt to a changing marketplace.
Yeah, you have to adapt to a changing marketplace.
Am I right? That's what you have to do.
I do that,
Right.
and we do thankfully very well here.
Yeah.
And I have locals that come every day, as you saw from earlier.
I'm a local. I live in District C.
That's all. That all.
I'm going to go back to when we started up talking about.
Yeah. But I mean, like, in other words, so what I've had to do is I've had to like combine it. I got to sell coffee to the Airbnb
Yeah.
folks in the neighborhood, but then I also have like
Right.
Hayes and Herman and stuff that come around and shoot the breeze here every morning. So
Right.
it's a combo thing. So and I think restaurants have to do the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Kristin, thank you so much for coming
Yeah,
on the
it's been fun.
program.
I enjoyed it.
This is super good.
Well,
I
I
hope you do. I hope everything works out for you in the election.
It will.
Yes.
It will. With everybody's support, with SOC support,
Yes.
I would like y'all support, and I promise I will represent well and always keep my phone open and answer issues and concerns, because I do think, and I hope people understand that my history in this community goes back very deep, 20 plus years. I've been watching the neighborhoods change here. I've worked in these neighborhoods. I've had my businesses in these neighborhoods, my nonprofits in these neighborhoods, and so I understand the changing dynamic, and I think we need somebody who's in office that also understands the changing dynamic of the communities and also respects what the community wants. I think that's really important.
I think that's awesome. All right, thank you so much. Take care. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.